presentations or you watch the presentations, you should keep your study guides handy. This will keep the vocab that you need to know up in front, and also the key concepts of the questions that you're trying to answer in your mind as you watch the presentations. Hopefully help you fill them out as we go along. All right. Before we get started into the content, the SOLs give us some big ideas to keep in mind as we discuss the material ahead. Two of these, for this unit anyway, are early European exploration and colonization resulted in the redistribution of the world's population as millions of people from Europe and Africa voluntarily and involuntarily moved to the New World. Redistribution means people have changed the place they live. Okay? Involuntary are the slaves from Africa that are picked up and forced to the New World against their will. Voluntarily, of course, are all the immigrants that flood to the New World from Europe for new opportunities. All right? The second big one is exploration and colonization initiated worldwide commercial expansion. Commerce is trade, so the expansion of trade in the world is a result of colonization. All right, as agricultural products were exchanged between the Americas and Europe, this, of course, is the Columbian Exchange, which we'll talk about a little more. In time, colonization led to the ideas of representative government and religious toleration that over several centuries would inspire similar transformations all over the world. Okay, so as we're going through the presentation, some questions to keep in mind. Why did Europeans settle in the English colonies? All right. And there's different reasons depending on the regions that they were settled in. Right? We're going to talk about three different colonial regions in the New World. We have the southern colonies, the middle colonies, and the New England region. And there's different reasons why they settled in each one. Okay. Question number two is, how did their motivations influence their settlement patterns and colonial structures? All right. Society. Okay. And number three is, in what ways did the cultures of Europe, Africa, and the Americas interact? And what were the consequences of those interactions? All right. So we have three big questions, two big ideas as we go through the presentation. All right. So here, exploration and colonization. All right, Columbus set sail in 1492, sailed Columbus sails the ocean blue in 1492, he discovers America. We're going to stick to that. That's the acceptance. We say, if I ask who discovered America, it's Columbus in 1492. There are a number of problems with this. First, millions of people lived here when Columbus got here. And they would argue the fact that he did not discover anything since they were already here. And they've been here for thousands of years. The accepted ideas Native Americans crossed the land bridge from Asia, across the Bering Sea, 15,000 years ago. Okay, so if I ask you, how did Native Americans get here, Indians get to the New World, it's across the land bridge. Right, so millions of people have been here for thousands of years before Columbus. They're here when he gets here, so he might not have discovered much. Second, not only the Native Americans, but the Vikings had been here before Columbus, all right, up north in Canada. All right. So the Vikings had settled before, or attempted to settle America for Columbus. Of course, there was a big difference, in technology. So Columbus was much more successful. The Europeans at Columbus's time were more successful than the Vikings. Okay. Anyhow, the discovery by Columbus leads to the redistribution of the world's people. As Spain and Portugal are getting very rich from these new discoveries, hence that discovery is going to lead other nations in Europe to follow suit. All right. Now, some big things to keep in mind when thinking about exploration and colonization. Explorers do not come for permanence. Right? They go for 3 Gs. All right. And it's different. Colonizers are coming to stay. Explorers are not. So the 3 Gs that motivate exploration and explorers are gold, God, and glory. All right, gold, God, glory. So keep those in mind. All right, very different from colonists who plan on staying colonists. They're going to bring their families. They're going to be here forever. Okay. The Columbian Exchange we just mentioned. You should look this chart over. You should know a couple of things that can go back and forth. This is the term Columbian Exchange that we give to the exchange of goods and ideas between the Old World, which is Europe, Old World Europe, and the New World, which is the Americas, both North and South. All right? The movement of goods and ideas between the two. Things like sugar, pigs, horses, guns, and the wheel come from Europe to America. And things like corn, tobacco, tomatoes, and potatoes go from the Americas to Europe. So no pizza sauce before Columbus, right? No potato in the Irish diet before Columbus. All right. Now, diseases go both ways, and one of the biggest tragedies, the biggest tragedy of the discovery of the New World is going to be the deaths of millions and millions of Native Americans due to European diseases. And we'll talk about this in class, why Europeans don't die from the diseases that they bring over, or at least not the numbers that Native Americans do. All right, so we have things like the smallpox coming from Europe, kills millions of Native Americans. Of course, diseases go both ways. The one you should recall going from the Americas to Europe is syphilis, which we'll talk about more in class too. Okay. Now, a quick look at why people would move to the New World before we break things down to the two big ones. All right? The two big ones being economic opportunity and religious freedom, which are the two you really have to remember. But we need to know what's going to send people out because it's dangerous. High mortality, lots of people die over here. They're taking big risks, so why would people go? And face the unknown. Now, we call things that drive immigration and movement push and pull factors. Push factors are things that push you out. They're generally bad. All right, the potato famine in Ireland in the 1840s is a push factor. It pushes the Irish out. There's nothing to eat. They're starving. Okay, pull factors then pull you in and are generally good things. Opportunity. All right, the chance to better your position in the world, social mobility, right? To change your class, all right, your wealth and your status. We're going to pull people to the New World. All right, so some of the things that send people out is the population increase in Europe. We have overpopulation, no jobs, no available land. All right, so they need to seek opportunity elsewhere. All right, we're still an agrarian or agricultural society. The wealth is measured in land, and since there's no opportunity to have any land, people have to go somewhere else for it. The enclosure movement's going on in Britain, Ireland, and Scotland. That's when the landlords realize that they can make more money with sheep than they can with people. So they send some big guys around at night or all day, and they knock on their tenants' doors and they say, you have to leave now, and they knock your house down and send you packing. So there's people flooding the cities out of the country with no jobs, no opportunity, and they'll be willing to leave and start over. Religion is going to be a big motivator. The Reformation, which we'll talk about a little bit in classes, is still in full swing, and challenges to traditional religious or accepted religious thought lead people to look for places they can practice their beliefs in peace. Okay, so that'll be more religious freedom, a big one. Okay. Primogeniture is the policy of a system where the eldest son inherits everything. So if I have 4 sons and 2 daughters, when I go, only my eldest son gets anything. Everybody else has to go to do something else. They're out. All right, so that's going to lead to people seeking opportunity elsewhere. Dollars, motivate. Again, land is wealth, and if you can get yourself to the New World, there's a chance you're going to get at least 50 acres of land, which is a lot. So there's opportunity to be had here. A second chance for criminals. We'll talk about this specifically in Georgia for debtors. All right, so a place to start over and give a second chance in life. Okay, so we've discussed that push and pull factors, reasons people leave. Now, nations are going to take different approaches. They're going to have different strategies in how they go about getting people over here and establishing colonies and what the nation's role is in the colony. In the New World, we talk mostly about 4 different colonizers. The Spanish, the French, the English, and the Dutch. Okay? Now, Portugal's down in Brazil, but it doesn't really affect us in this course at all. The Dutch are going to be in New York. New York is originally a Dutch colony. Okay, different methods they take. The Spanish take a direct approach, government sponsorship. Right? where they directly fund colonization. The problem with this is if something goes wrong, they directly lose those funds also. So it's an expensive approach and a risky one, and see it kind of strangle the Spanish Empire. And we'll discuss that briefly also in class. England's going to utilize the joint stock company. That allows stock is a share in a company. You buy stock. So you buy ownership in a company, you can only lose your investment, whatever the stock costs. So that allows them to raise more money to more people, all right, and finance big ventures. So England, when we get to Jamestown is settled as a joint stock company, the Virginia Company of London. I think the initial share in the Virginia Company was somewhere around $60 in today's money. All right, it spreads out the risk. It's a much safer approach to the risk and the cost. The French are going to establish trading posts. They come over in much fewer numbers. And what's important about this, or to remember, they come over in fewer numbers, so they're going to get along much better with the Native Americans than other European powers. Remember that they love to ask that on the SOL. It's kind of trivia they like. All right, so the French get along better with Native Americans. And it makes sense. They come over in less numbers. They need to get along better. Missions, the Spanish, the Catholic Spanish, also established missions, religious settlements throughout the American Southwest and Mexico. A famous one you may have heard of is the Alamo. Again, we'll go into that in more detail in class. Okay. We have characteristics of settlement. Now we're going to start off with two early colonies now before we go into the characteristics of the three big regions. Okay, Jamestown is the first permanent English settlement in the New World. And permanent means lasting, so it's not the first attempt. There was an attempt at Roanoke Island that failed earlier on. You may be familiar with it when they came to restock it. They found the word Croatoa carved in the tree, and that's all they found left of the colony. So Jamestown is the first permanent settlement, English settlement in the New World. Jamestown, like the rest of the South, the main motivator is going to be economic opportunity. Okay, people came to make money. It's established by a company, the Virginia Company of London. So the main motivator for the South, and Jamestown particularly, is economic opportunity. It's founded in 1607, again by the Virginia Company of London. So if I say on a test, who settled Jamestown or who founded Jamestown, you don't want to say John Smith or John Arnold. You want to say the Virginia Company of London founded Jamestown as a business venture. It's given a charter by the king, which is a document granting them legal rights to establish and form this colony, and also promising them the rights of the Englishmen, which is very, very important. So the colonists who come from the time of Jamestown to the time of the Revolution consider themselves Englishmen and understand their rights as Englishmen, and those rights are very important to them, okay? 1619, we're going to get the first Africans imported to work on tobacco farms, and also we'll have the establishment of the Virginia House of Burgesses, which will be the first example of representative democracy in the New World. And today it's the Virginia General Assembly still lasting. We're going to discuss why here we have representative democracy in the South, and up north in New England they're going to have direct democracy. And there's geographical reasons where we'll go in. In the South, people live on big plantations. Plantations are big farms, and we're all spread out. So you can't leave your job or your plantation whenever need be to go participate. So we send somebody to represent us, which will lead to the people that have the time and money to go and spend time in Williamsburg being in charge of the General Assembly. So we'll see the wealthier class take control of the General Assembly, the House of Burgesses. Okay, some important vocab and names. John Smith, he's one of the men that saves the colony when they first get to Jamestown. Again, these are things we're going to expand on in class. He said, if you don't work, you don't eat. So he forced the colonists, the townsmen and the wealthy who came to search for gold stuff to get off their butts and go out and plant and work and ensure the survival of the colony. John Rolfe, maybe in a bigger way save the colony, because he discovers a way for the colony to make money. If he hadn't messed around with different strands of tobacco to get a viable strand that could be commercially sold, Jamestown would have failed. Right? It's a business venture. If that business can't make money, the company and people back home in England are going to stop sending supplies, stop sending people, and stop supporting the colony. So Rolfe saves it through the development of tobacco. Cavaliers, UVA, just so I remember, over on that side of the mountain, there are people who know the king, who may be friends with the king, and they got large land grants, huge land grants from the king. Okay? And then indentured servants. Indentured servants, if we look at earlier, why people came, your farm, or you were kicked off your farm, right? You were attending, your brother inherited the land. Most of the people that came over early on were poor and couldn't afford the journey, so they would sign a contract to work for somebody for 7 years in return for passage over. Okay, so an indentured servant couldn't afford to pay his own way over, and he would sign a contract, work for 7 years, and at the end of that 7 years, he would get 50 acres of land for his service. All right. In New England, and we'll start off with Plymouth in New England first, is settled for religious freedom. All right. And now, when we say religious freedom, it's for themselves, no one else. Okay. The first colonists and early on the colonies up in New England are very, very intolerant of any other religious thought but their own. All right. So while it's religious freedom, sure, just for them. Okay. The first group over, the Pilgrims, they're going to land in Plymouth about 1620, so 13 years after Jamestown settled. They actually land in Plymouth. It's part of the Virginia colony. They were coming to Virginia, so they realized where they were. And they said, this isn't so bad. It's far enough away from Jamestown and the Virginia colony itself that they can't bother us and tell us what to do every time, so we'll stay right here. All right. So again, they're Pilgrims. Pilgrims are a group of Puritans, which is part of the Anglican Church, the Church of England, okay, who thought the church was still too Catholic. Again, this is during the Reformation. They were reforming the church, attacking Catholicism. So they didn't like the changes that the Anglicans had made, and they wanted to separate from it. So the Pilgrims then are separatists. All right, the Pilgrims came over on the Mayflower, and before they even got off the boat, as the Mayflower pulls up to Plymouth Rock, the men get together and decide the rules, or how they're going to rule their colony, and they write the Mayflower Compact. The Mayflower Compact is a promise that all the men on the Mayflower, all the people on the Mayflower, will obey the laws and respect the laws that they make for their community. All right. The Puritans then come later, not long after. They want to purify the Anglican Church, not separate from it. Okay, improve the Church of England. They practice direct democracy in town hall meetings and established a covenant community. The covenant community is the idea or a community based on the principles of the Mayflower Compact and Puritan religious beliefs. So in New England, there will be no separation of church and state. Okay? Your standing in the community and politically depends on your standing in the church and you being a participant in that church. All right. Now, the type of democracy formed in the different regions, as I said earlier, has a lot to do with geography. In the South, people were spread out, living on large plantations. They elected representatives, that's representative democracy, to make laws for them. In New England, the soil was very poor, very rocky. So people didn't live on big farms. They practiced what we call subsistence farming. You just grow enough for your family and yourself. So they lived close together in towns. And since you live in town, you have the opportunity to participate directly. Everyone down to town hall and voted. The men, church members in good standing, voted on the rules and laws for their community. That's direct democracy, and sometimes we refer to that as Athenian democracy from Athens, Greece. Okay, the middle colonies we'll see as a combination, and as we go deeper into the colonies over the next few shows, you'll notice this. All right, they're a blending of the two regions. That makes sense. They lie between them. They're in the middle, and they'll blend in and get kind of pick and choose the best of both of the others. All right, they're much more religiously diverse. there's much more economic opportunity in their towns, in their cities, and we'll see a much many more different ethnicities, ethnic groups, English, Irish, German. All right, many more people from different parts of Europe, the Dutch. Okay. All right, so we then just have to look quickly at the effects of colonization, and we're going to go into the 13 colonies in much more detail over the next couple of shows. We're going to see worldwide commercial expansion. Again, that's trade. All right, agricultural goods going back and forth from old world to new world. We're going to see the development of representative government. All right, which is a continuation of our English heritage. All right, we go back at founding documents, Magna Carta, English Constitution, English Bill of Rights. Okay, American democracy is built on our heritage and these small stepping stones that are part of our history. We're going to see the loss of land and life for Native Americans, for Indians. Millions and millions are going to die, and they're going to lose their land as colonists come over. We're going to see the colonists develop a strong belief in private ownership of property. Property rights are going to be central to American development. All right, then we're going to see the development of an agricultural economy in the South and the Caribbean, which will lead to the need for slavery. Right? And as I said earlier, the French can get along much better with Native Americans. Their slideshow 1.